footballers are part of the best paid in the world, and we'll tell you about the most expensive women footballers on the African continent this hour. And Real Madrid set to appoint Xavi Alonso as the new coach, and Bayer Leverkusen will receive between 5 and 10 million US dollars in compensation. Details at 4:30.
A very good afternoon to you, Nigeria. Good afternoon, Ghana, Senegal, Eritrea. Good afternoon to you, Gabon, Somalia, Swaziland, Egypt, Tunisia. Good afternoon to you, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Good afternoon, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Thami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, business and sport. It's gone exactly 6 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. A lot in store for you this afternoon as far as the world of business on the African continent is concerned. We look forward to engaging with you on our various social media platforms. On X, Instagram and YouTube, you'll find us at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook, we are at Channel Africa. If you have any stories you'd like to share that you believe would be of interest to our listeners, both on the African continent and in the diaspora, do send us your story leads to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Good afternoon to you, Africa, and welcome to Africa in Business.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
We begin here this afternoon. During a media briefing on South Africa's G20 summit preparations held in Pretoria on Monday, South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, confirmed that all G20 member states, including their heads of state, have been invited to attend the upcoming Leaders Summit in Johannesburg. He noted that while former U.S. President Joe Biden had been invited, it will be up to the U.S. government to confirm his attendance. On Russia's participation, Lamola indicated that, in line with recent precedent, Vladimir Putin is not expected to attend due to the International Criminal Court's ruling, with Russia likely to be represented at a ministerial level, as it was during the Brazil summit. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe has more.
Amid hostile tensions between South Africa and the U.S., skepticism is rife to whether U.S. President Donald Trump will make his way to South Africa to take part in the G20 Summit of Leaders to be held in South Africa in November 2025. With public pressure mounting, Lamola poured cold water on the subject.
With regards to the Leaders Summit, who has been invited to participate, the G20 is for all members of the G20, and the leaders of the G20, they are all expected, or they are invited to attend. And obviously the US President, as a member state of the G20, will be invited, but it's up to the US whether they attend or not the G20 in South Africa in the Leaders Summit. So as to whether the U.S. President will attend the Leaders Summit in Johannesburg, we will leave it to the U.S. government to confirm his attendance or his non-attendance.
Lamola also cleared the air on Russia's president participation.
With regards to the president of Russia, you will remember that he didn't attend the Brazil Summit. Russia was represented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Brazil, and I think also in the previous one. So we will want to continue in that context, and there were reasons at that level at that time. So we are looking forward to continue in that context, but Russia will participate and be represented in the Leaders Summit.
The G20 project coordinator, Masoja Nguni, who is tasked with overall project management of Sherpa meetings, provided the following account.
Firstly, just to underscore that the US is part of the G20 Troika, comprised of Brazil as the previous president, South Africa, the current president, and the US, which is the incoming G20 president next year. So there is a dynamic cooperation within the Troika on the organization of work. In actual fact, the first in-person G20 Troika at Sherpa level took place in Washington, D.C. In April.
On U.S. participation, Nguni says the U.S. is actively taking part in all key G20 meetings.
Regarding the participation of the U.S. in the working group of the G20, there are 15 working groups in total, and of course the U.S. does participate in these meetings. Of course, there may be issues in some of the working groups that they may feel strongly about, but that does not in any way hinder their participation and also the contribution that they make in these meetings.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
South Africa's unemployment rate rose in the first quarter of this year from 31.9% to 32.9%. The expanded definition of unemployment, which includes those discouraged from looking for work, rose to 43.1%. This is from 41.9%. Unemployment has been on the rise since 2016 and has been stuck over 30% for the past 5 years. An economist at Anchor Capital, Casey Sprake, says South Africa's unemployment rate and its unemployment problem is a complex and multifaceted issue that requires sustained and coordinated efforts from all sectors of society. And Casey joins us on the line. A very good afternoon to you. Good to have you with us on Africa in Business.
Hi there. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the show today.
So when we look at these numbers, construction and the trade sectors are the ones which experience the most significant job losses. What could be the factors that led to the shedding of jobs in these particular sectors, especially because there's been such a huge focus on construction as far as infrastructure development is concerned, just based on the past few years and what the president has prioritized?
Yeah, I think it's an unfortunate byproduct of the fact that, as you mentioned, we've seen, these really important sort of key reforms, but we've really not seen the progress from there trickling down in the form of job opportunities for South Africans. And that's because a lot of these issues are still unfortunately very much prevalent in the South African economy. If you think of, having ongoing power issues, we have continual issues on logistics side of things, as in our roads, our ports, our rail, water-related issues as well. And those are the kind of factors that directly hamper the industries that you just mentioned. So businesses within those industries, and whether they're local or global, just don't have that faith or sense to reinvest back into those sectors for which would lead to growth opportunity because of those factors that are hampering them.
You have indicated that the recent key reform measures that had been put in place by the Government of National Unity are yet to yield any fruit. Could you highlight for us what are those key initiatives that have been put in place that once they lock in, we'll be able to see their impact in the jobs market?
Well, the chief and foremost, of course, would be, the ongoing reforms we're seeing in our power sector, with across the transmission grid, the privatization of many of those elements within Eskom. So again, we've seen that we now sit on, record low levels of load shedding. We're nothing close to what we were, say, 2 years ago. But again, we just see stage 2 announced now today, this afternoon. So we're still seeing those issues sort of prevalent within the sector. So again, while those reforms are taking place, they're still not quite bearing fruit. We're not there yet. We are unfortunately still having ongoing issues amongst our ports, even with reforms trying to take through. So I think the key point to really make there is that as the reforms are happening, they're not quick fixes. It's not something we will see, within a few months. It's going to take a few years for this to properly be addressed.
Some of the key issues that have been highlighted as the reasons for this really high unemployment rate, especially among the youth, is the lack of skills, the lack of quality education, training as well, coming up as one of the huge challenges that have been highlighted. How does the lack of work experience among unemployed youth impact their prospects of getting decent jobs?
Yeah, and I think, with all those points, to firstly add, we also have a major skills mismatch within this economy. We might be turning out skilled employees in certain aspects, but it's not matching the jobs that are required within the great economy. If we drill down to the numbers that came through now, I think there's just sort of record high levels of unemployment for those holding university degrees. So it's not just those who have a matric or less, but those who are coming out of university with degrees that still can't find work. And again, I think it's a function of that there's not enough jobs within the economy aside from just being a skills mismatch, and that's why this youth is battling to simulate into the job market. The rule of thumb that we always normally keep as economists is that we only really see material job creation in South Africa when GDP growth approaches about 3% per annum. We haven't had more than 2% or even close to 2% for the last 10 years or more. So again, it's more of a case we're just not seeing the economy grow enough to bring in this youthful population into the workforce. And then, as you say, second to that, it is very hard to just have, education levels coming through and not having reputable job experience and entering the job market. Most employers these days are looking for some sort of level of experience that will help ease you into the job market. So, programs such as, internships and job sharing opportunities while you're still within school or if you're choosing to study further are very, very key to help, to try to address that gap.
Let's talk about the discouraged work seekers. They increased by 7,000, so they went up by 0.2%. Could you tell us about that demographic as well as perhaps the reasons why they are now discouraged and what impact that then ends up having on the economy?
Yes, and that is a very, very key point. And it's often a part, I think, that's, overlooked when we're looking at our unemployment numbers. So, for example, if we consider the expanded unemployment rate, so that's the number that actually includes those discouraged work seekers that you mentioned, that actually sits at 43.1%, which is, significantly higher than the headline rate of 52.9%. And, we see that as a far more reflective of the actual number of unemployed South Africans. And that really actually points to sort of longer-term structural issues within the local economy. Because if you fall into this category of, discouraged work seeker, meaning that you really just actually stop looking for work just because you feel that it doesn't exist there or it does not worth your time, it's very difficult to reincorporate these types of workers back into the labor force and to get them active again. So yes, the big issue around that is that it just again points to those longer term sort of structural issues within the economy.
And do you believe that these measures that the GNU has put in place, that those will suffice, that they will turn the tide? As I mentioned in the introduction, it's 9 years now of consistent increases in the unemployment rate?
Yes, it's early days yet, right? We've only had the GNU for about a year now, so it's still very, very early days. I've mentioned before that, the unemployment problem in South Africa, it's multifaceted and it's structural in nature, which means it's long-term. So the type of measures we're seeing trying to filter through at the moment is going to take time, and we're beginning to see slowly bits of reform. Obviously, this type of data that we're looking at the moment, economically speaking, it's backwards looking. It's always looking into the past. So we'll need to perhaps relook it again towards the end of the year to see if we're seeing any measures in place. But I don't think it's something we'll see significantly within this year. It's going to take a few years, if not even multi-generations, to try and see this turnaround in the unemployment issue. As you rightly pointed out, it's been a problem for over a decade now.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Casey Sprague there. She's an economist at Anchor Capital. Thank you for all that insight. Certainly, actually, if you do the maths, and if the maths is mathsing, it is 11 years to be more precise from 2016. That takes us to 20 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. In just a moment, we turn our focus onto tourism.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Sadio, quelles sont les motivations derrière la décision du général Mamadi Doumbouya d'accorder la grâce présidentielle à Moussa Dadis Camara?
Alors, officiellement ici, c'est pour des raisons de santé et puis le décret aussi a ajouté que c'est dans un élan de réconciliation nationale et c'est un cas social. Mais au-delà de ça, les analystes ils voient sous un angle politique. Les moins critiques estiment que c'est pour peut-être faciliter un petit peu la réconciliation que pourrait tenter aujourd'hui le CNSD.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
We turn our focus now on to the African rail networks, modernizing all existing rail networks, expanding into rural and underserved regions, securing multilateral funding for regional projects, as well as unlocking opportunities for local SMEs in the rail supply chain. These are just some of the key topics under discussion at the Africa Rail Conference, which is currently underway in Johannesburg, South Africa. The event has drawn over 150 speakers, 5,000 attendees, and 500 guest buyers. Channel Africa's business reporter, Innocent Samosa, has more.
The Africa Rail Conference is currently underway in Johannesburg, South Africa, bringing together rail industry leaders, government officials and private sector players from across the continent. South Africa's Minister of Transport, Barbara Creecy, underscored the importance of public-private partnerships to tackle the issues of funding and investment.
What we want to understand is the nature of market appetite before we issue requests for proposals, because in the past we have seen a situation where Transnet has issued requests for proposals from private sector partners that have been unresponsive. So we want to understand what is the market appetite like so that these requests for proposals can respond to market sentiment. I must say that this is not going to create a free-for-all. And that's why we are also creating the private sector participation unit under the auspices of the DBSA.
But what progress has been made in modernizing Africa's rail infrastructure over the past years? Ochi Williams is the director of INON Africa.
All right, so if we just look at our home base here in South Africa, there's been quite a lot of movements in the last few years. I mean, just yesterday I visited the Transnet Freight Rail team and had a look at the Kudusport plant and the various innovations that they're busy with. And they've done a lot to claw back on the losses that we've incurred, like I say, in the last five to 6 or so years. They're pulling us back into the positive, if I can say, in terms of the balance sheet, so that's great. And naturally looking to position the country as a key exporter of obviously finished products, but also those minerals that the rest of the world is so looking after, or essentially trying to make sure that they've got enough supply going forward for the various technologies and the different innovations that they want to put in place.
Webster Gozo, executive of human capital at Trans Namibia Holdings, says harmonization of rail standards across the continent can positively impact the African Continental Free Trade Area.
If it is that we're going to come together and allow people in goods and services to move over each and every single country with no borders, no customs duties and all of those things, we'll start to look ourselves as an African continent, as Africans, rather than the same way as you do when you get into Europe. Sometimes if you get into Europe, you get into a train in France, you can land up in Spain, you can land up to Italy without even having stopped anywhere. You wouldn't even know you're not there unless somebody has actually told you. This is the same way we need to start to think in this country, rather than looking at ourselves as the other. When we're only talking about our neighbors. And therein lies the opportunity for all of us.
For Channel Africa News, I am Innocent Samosa at the 2025 Africa Rail Conference in Johannesburg.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It's gone exactly 24 minutes. Oh, actually 25 minutes. Just as I said that, The seconds clock went to the other side of the 12. So it's 25 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Now, Uganda's tourism sector continues to position itself as a key player in Africa's travel economy, with a strong focus on sustainable tourism, wildlife experiences, and cultural heritage. At the heart of promoting as well as coordinating these experiences is the Association of Uganda Tour Operators, an organization dedicated to supporting tour operators and advancing the country's tourism agenda. Joining us this afternoon is Jonathan Arau. He is vice chairperson of the association, and he is taking part in Africa's Travel Indaba taking place in Durban. A very good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Yes, good afternoon. It's nice. It's good for you to host us on your show, and would be very comfortable to share information.
How are you finding Durban, South Africa?
Yeah, well, currently the weather is very good. We have had a good time as a delegation here in Durban. Our business is going on well. We're interacting with our tour operators from across the globe and from South Africa. And yes, everything is going on well.
Have you managed to have a day at the beach yet?
Not yet, but hopefully after the show, we shall have time for entertainment.
And just enjoy the sights and the sounds of Durban. But back to business, back to the business of the day. Tell us a bit more about your association and the role that you play in the country's tourism landscape. Who makes part of the Uganda Tour Operators?
So basically, the Association of Uganda Tour Operators is the leading association in Uganda, bringing together all tour operators in one same umbrella. The association has been in active service for over 30 years, with many of the tour operators members of the association. So what the association does, it basically gives them a platform to associate and a platform for us to promote our businesses. For example, this year we are attending the show here, the Indaba, and the association brought several of its members to participate in the show. Okay, so that's one of the opportunities the member tour operators can benefit by being the members in the association.
And what are the specific packages or experiences that you're showcasing to potential buyers as well as potential partners in Durban? Because ultimately it is a trade show, albeit the trade then being within the tourism sector.
Yes, Uganda is located in East Africa, and it is one of the best destinations you can visit in Africa. The weather is good, a lot of tourism activities to do, the people are welcoming, and one of the main activities that people come to see in Uganda is actually to participate in the gorilla trekking. This is because gorillas can only be found in a few locations in Africa. That is in Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo. The mountain gorillas can only be found there, okay, in the wild. So many people come to do that. There are also other primates like the chimps, golden monkeys, and all that. And then we also have other safaris, the big five, adventure sports, and many other things that we sell in Uganda. So basically, we are trying to promote that, such that the visitors who come to Africa, because there are many people who come to Africa and they are looking for unique opportunities. There are also return people who have maybe come to Southern Africa, but also want to experience Eastern Africa. So we are trying to provide a product that they can enjoy and keep on coming to Africa and supporting the tourism industry in Africa in general.
And how important is collaboration among tour operators across the continent in promoting regional trade and tourism?
Yes, cooperation.
Oh, unfortunately, we seem to be... Jonathan, my sincerest apologies. We are losing you there towards the end of that answer. But let me give you just one more opportunity. Let's give this one more shot and let's see if we've got a better connection. If you can still hear me, sir, please do go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, please do go ahead, sir.
So the important thing when cooperating as to our agencies across the globe, across Africa, is because there is a lot of business that comes from abroad, okay? and many people try to access different locations. So probably a tour operator in South Africa may not know a lot about Uganda and East Africa in general. So by collaborating with the East African tour operator, they are able to sell their products across the region. You are able to sell a long trip covering many destinations, Eastern and Southern Africa. And then also within Africa itself, there are many travelers, for example, who are coming from Southern Africa to visit East Africa. And there are many people coming from Uganda, East Africa, to visit South Africa. So we need the collaboration between the different tour operators in these two locations and in Africa in general, such that we are able.
No, certainly. I think we'll leave it at there, Mr. Jonathan Errol. We thank you very much for your time and wishing you all of the best at the Africa Travel in Daba, which is currently taking place in Durban. The Association of Uganda Tour Operators, he's the vice president of that association. Takes us to exactly 4:31 Central African time as we make our way now for the latest in news. No, let's start off with the economy. Yes, let's take a look at what the economics desk has in store for us with Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Good afternoon. $1 is trading at 18 Rand 25 in South Africa. In Botswana is at 13 Pula 44. Namibia 18 Namibian dollars 25. The Zambian kwacha 26 kwacha 61 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 435. Ethiopia 133 birr 306. Uganda 3,000 shillings 637. Tanzania 2,000 shillings 692. $1 in Nigeria is 1,000 naira 604. In Egypt, the dollar is at 50 Egyptian pound 52. Tunisia 3 dinar 01. Algeria 132 dinar 633. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 18. In Angola, the dollar is at 911 kwanza 251, while the Congolese franc is 2,852. Looking at commodities, gold is $3,240, platinum at $983 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil $65.64 a barrel. That is all from me. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And standing by with the latest from the business of sport, here is Musiburi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. A very good afternoon from the Sports Day. So, guys, did you know some of the highest paid female footballers in the world are from Africa? So, back in 2024, Zambian footballer Rachel Kurinanchi became the most expensive female player in the world, underscoring the increasing business value as well as a surging demand for African football talent globally. So, Bay FC of the American National Women's Soccer League out in the USA spent about $860,000 and was also the first African player, male or female, to break a world transfer record. So African women footballers are increasingly attracting interest from major clubs as well as leagues, pushing their way into a multi-million-dollar transfer mark. So let's speak now to Julia Wanjeri. She's the founder as well as the editor of JW Sports One, an online platform that covers a lot of women's football. She's based out in Kenya. On the line this afternoon on Channel Africa to speak to us about this growing trend, or the trend that we're seeing where African players are actually being given the recognition they deserve from clubs from around the world. Julia, a very good afternoon to you and thank you so much for your time. Some of the highest paid players on the African continent are from, the African continent. How huge of a win is this for women's football on the African continent to see a number of interested clubs from around the world being interested in African talent?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. yes, it's very huge because we know at the end of the day the number of footballers across the globe, girls who are playing football have increased tremendously over the years. So for us as Africa to be the ones producing record-breaking players, the Kunda Najis, it's huge because now it means the world is now looking here. The scouts are looking here. Anyone who runs a women's football platforms, you get an email from a scout at least once or twice a month now, compared to 4 or 5 years ago where you barely got such emails, such contacts asking for what are the next players, who are we supposed to, like for example, in Kosafa that's ongoing, already you are being asked what the players are we supposed to be watched to look out for. And interestingly enough, also now it's not just strikers that we are being told to take a look at. There's a lot of interest in African goalkeepers, which is very interesting. And I think that also comes from the Nigerian who's playing for Paris FC. Now we are seeing, even at the back line, the goalkeepers and the defenders being of interest as well.
Yeah. When you look at the numbers, Julia, they're quite staggering. $860,000 that was the transfer fee for Rachel Kunananchi back in 2024, essentially making her the highest paid female African footballer on the African continent. Barbara Banda also falling in second position. She was bought by Orlando Pride also last year for a fee of about $760,000. Who's negotiating these contracts for these players? Do they have great agents and lawyers to be able to sign contracts like of this magnitude?
That's the interesting bit. I think that's the next question. Now we have to go there and start asking that even as the contracts, the signing on fees are big, sometimes also the player does not get the entire amount when it comes to the signing. For example, the entire amount doesn't go to the player. And I think that's the bigger question to ask. We know a number of agencies that are now operating in Africa and have the LTA is one of them that have most of the players. But I think there's a question mark there because now we're also seeing on the other end a number of players who, when they sign the deal, what does the deal say? What's the fine print in it?
Yeah. So that's what we need to know. What does the deal say? What do they essentially get at the end of the month annually, when they sign this contract? Is it big money or does some of that money go to, the lawyers, the agents, those individuals that represent our athletes? So we speak about Rachel Kunananchi. There's also Barbara Banda. Who are some of the players that are also highly paid on the African continent that you can think of at the moment?
Interesting enough, when you read the fine print, Kunananchi and the South Africans, they pick Gatlana, what they're pocketing every month is very similar.
Yeah.
And if you look at Gatlana, when she left from NWSL, where everyone is going, she left and went to the Mexican League, the Liga MX. And if you look at her signing contract was one. It didn't get as much airplay, but it was very interesting. At that particular time, it was one of the highest in regards to a player being bought off from NWSL to another league. I think before that, the player who had been bought for a bigger amount, it was Lindsay Horan, who was leaving from Portland Thorns to Lyon in France, and then Krika Glana left from NWSL racing to Tigres in the Mexican League. And I, from what we hear, some of this you can't get you have to contact the player agents and get the estimate. Gatlana, the amount she pockets per year, it's around without the add-ons, it comes to around 500,000 USD. Or 550, and it's very similar to what Kondalaji is getting towards every per year. And Katlana is even more interesting because hers is more detailed how much she scores. If she scores, I think up to 20 goals, racing in back to the WSL gets an amount. If she sold again, there's an amount that will go back to racing. So now we are seeing African players commanding so much, not only just their salary in the product itself, that if you go to another team, we are sending you to a team. If you go to another third team, others racing in NWSL will still get an amount. So it's a very complex now kind of contracts that we are seeing coming to women football in Africa.
Julia, thank you so much for your time this afternoon on Channel Africa. Julia Wanjeri is the founder as well as the editor of JW Sports One, breaking it down for us, the numbers, some of the highly paid players on the African continent doing incredible stuff in some of the best leagues around the world. You think about the UK, you think about players in the USA, there's also players in Mexico, South African players, by the way, in Mexico, Japan, China, as well as in the UK, doing incredible stuff and getting paid lots of money to play football. So that's a wrap from the sports desk at this hour. Let's head back to Thami Ngubeni.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you to Musiburi Makura there, giving us the business of sport. She takes us to 20 minutes to 4 p.m. Central African Time.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Africa in Business. Africa in Business delivers key insights and real-time updates on Africa's growing markets with Thami Ngubeni. The African perspective on Channel Africa.
Channel Africa.
Wherever in the world that you may be, wherever on the African continent where you may be, there is one place, actually a couple of places, where we can always have a touching point, not only here live on air on YouTube. We're not only able to engage using our audio senses, but also visually as well, as we are live streaming on YouTube at Channel Africa 1 is where you'll find us. We also are at Channel Africa 1 on X and Instagram. On Facebook, you'll find us at Channel Africa.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
Now, South Africa's power utility Eskom has announced that stage 2 load shedding will be implemented from this evening, running through to Thursday. In light of frequent power outages in the country, how can small and medium-sized enterprises ensure that they keep their lights on? Most businesses will opt for generators, solar, battery-powered backup systems, as well as inverters. But with growing concern for the environment and the need for sustainable energy sources, solar energy has emerged as a popular choice. To find out more about the benefits of investing in solar power, we joined on the line this afternoon by Lionel Frost, Sales Manager at the National Energy Solutions. Good to have you with us, Lionel. A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to listeners.
I've got this niggling suspicion in my mind. I wonder if our conversation today has anything to do with Eskom now plunging us back into stage 2 load shedding. I certainly hope not.
Well, I hope not. I hope not neither. But it is. It's there, and it's going to happen. And hopefully I can be of help and give the listeners advice
So let's talk
on how to move forward.
On how to move forward. But let's talk about the reasons why, for an extended period of time, it looked like South Africa was a little bit out of the woods as far as load shedding is concerned.
Yes, I think everybody got a bit complacent and everybody thought that everything was running smoothly again. There's always been that niggling factor as to when is it going to raise its ugly head again. With winter approaching, there's going to be more usage. Your grid will be loaded more, and it's then the generation. The Eskom generation plants can't handle that load, and then put strain on the grid.
And we certainly are seeing that. The environmental benefits of using solar have been highlighted and have been lauded. But apart from the environmental benefits, what are the other reasons why it is important for businesses to invest in alternative energy sources and more specifically solar?
There's a couple of generation platforms you can use. Of course, before it was more your generators. But they all are noisy. They're high maintenance, and of course, it's the diesel costs. To basically run the units. When it comes to solar, it's a much efficient, a more efficient solution. It's very quiet, right? You can add onto your system as you go along. If your business expands, you can then put in, say, more batteries, more solar panels, and then also upgrade your inverter systems. Most of the time on your business side, you want to keep your tools going, you want to keep your lights going, you want to keep your security system going. So that's where the UPS works. Well, actually, inverter works very well.
And I think what's quite advantageous about this, you talk about the ability to upgrade, and you are able to scale according to your energy needs and also according to your financial availability at that particular time and how much cash flow you have. But apart from solar, what are the most affordable and effective backup power solutions that are available on the market?
Look, most of it is solar. Okay, put it this way: solar is more expensive than, say, a generator. But you're looking at the running costs, the savings that you're going to have after that, due to maintenance, your fuel costs, and so on. This outweighs the actual generator. As I say, there is a market still for generators where there is a huge consumption, power consumption. So the generators won't fade away. But you also got to have a look at your budget. That is very important. What can you afford at the time, and what is the best solution for you at a particular time. And then build up.
And then build up from there.
Yeah. And then make a conscious decision to say, right, I need power. What do I need to run? And how can I go about it? At National Energy Solutions, we will then actually go down to site and we can have a look exactly what is required, what you want to run, work out a plan for you, and then present the plan. Which will help, and we'll get a bit of a budget price, and then we can work around that. Give you a solution.
One thing, Lionel, is that as technology evolves, solutions are found for problems that before could not be solved. And one of those problems, I believe, is using solar panels on thatch roofing. We know that that's a fire hazard. It's a no-no. But looking at the industry trends right now, are there now solutions on how you can actually use solar power with thatch roofing?
That's not really at this stage. But as you say, things do progress. There's new technology coming out every day. They're working on the actual new technology. On the thatched roofing, yes, there is a big risk of fire, especially if it is not installed correctly. And that's also very important that when you do put when you do install a solar system, you get accredited installers to do it for you. There's a lot of fly-by-nights out there. And they then install it incorrectly, and your risk of that is very high.
And I wonder, Lionel, will insurance companies even insure you with an installation of that nature?
No. If it's not done by an accredited installer, then the insurance company will not cover any damages or any loss due to that.
And talking about that, what are the common mistakes that businesses make when buying backup power solutions, and how can they avoid them? The last thing you want to do is invest heavily financially. Meanwhile, your foundations were not set. You've made fundamental mistakes that you cannot reverse further down the line. What do businesses have to take into consideration when they are putting together alternative power sources for themselves?
All right. The best way to do it is basically contact an installer or contact us. We'll come out and then do a power analysis We will put meters onto your grid. We can see exactly what you're drawing, and then give you the right solution. What people do, they don't do the homework, and they go and buy a small unit, which cannot handle everything that they want to put on, which then is an extra cost for them to go and go get another unit. Or they go and they spend a unit that is way too big for the system, and it's an overkill, which then they basically spending they're spending money which they didn't have to do. Another big one as well is actually getting the right batteries. We recommend lithium batteries. They are more efficient and they last much longer. So at the end of the road, you are actually saving on you're saving on your maintenance. On your solar system. Also, there's also the panels. There's new generation panels coming out all the time. First started on generation 1. We're now at generation 4 or 5 at the moment. So and each time a new panel comes out, it's more efficient than the previous panel.
I mean, those are the time of the advancements that we're speaking about in technology. But let's leave it at that for this afternoon, Lionel. Thank you very much for a really insightful conversation. It comes just in time. If we all in South Africa thought that we don't need to look at alternative power sources anymore, well, today Eskom has reminded us that not quite yet. We still need to do some backing up there. We thank you for your insights, sir.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. That's Lionel Frost. He is sales manager at the National Energy Solutions.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
We take you to Zimbabwe now, where police have arrested 6 members of the Zimbabwe National Students' Union for protesting at the University of Zimbabwe over lecturers' low salaries. University lecturers are demanding a salary of $2,250, the amount they received in 2018, arguing that their current $219 salary is inadequate. Their absence from classes due to this dispute prompted the student protest against the university administration. More from our correspondent John Kasim, based in Harare, Zimbabwe.
Initially, the singing and chanting in the students' common room seemed harmless. However, the chilly Monday morning escalated into clashes between agitated university students, members of the Zimbabwe National Students' Union, and the police. This protest resulted in the arrest of 6 student leaders who organized the demonstration. The students' demands were straightforward. They wanted the University of Zimbabwe administration to reinstate 2018 lecturer salaries of $2,250. Lecturers had previously staged their own protest, leading to the arrest of their lawyer and union leaders. They have since stopped teaching and impacting students. The students' Monday protest stemmed from the fact that without the 2018 salary, lecturers would not return to work and subsequently students would not be able to take their examinations. Here is what the students said during the protest.
We are here as University of Zimbabwe students to demonstrate against the administration of Professor Paul Mafumo and Registrar Dr. Munyarazi Madambi, who are denying us the right to quality education. As students, we paid full tuition fees, and after paying full tuition fees, we expect learning services in return, and that includes lecturers teaching us in lecture rooms. But as you all know that our lecturers are on strike, they are being underpaid, they are being paid slave wages, $229 for a lecturer, a professor, a doctor. But the solution is very simple. Pay our lecturers pre-2018 salaries of 2,250 United States dollars, and they will be back in lecture rooms.
A few days ago, the University of Zimbabwe lecturers downed tools demanding a review of their salaries from the current $219 to $2,250. They said the current salary has incapacitated them to an extent that they are no longer able to board buses to work. Previously, lecturers were employed by universities until recently when government took over. This is when the salaries were changed, rendering their wages useless, they say. While the protest and arrest of students was meant for authorities to act, chances this situation will remain for a long time are great. Here's what the student said.
But the administration of Professor Paul Mafumo and Registrar Dr. Mnyarazi Madambi are trying to act as if everything is normal, of which nothing is normal. It cannot be business as usual at the University of Zimbabwe. So the students are saying we need our lecturers back, bring back our lecturers, and the solution is very simple. Pay our lecturers, compensate them fairly, pay them decent salaries, decent wages.
John Kasim in Harare, Zimbabwe for Channel Africa News.
It's now exactly 4:56 Central African time as we head to the close of Africa in Business for today. Just a quick recap of the stories that we brought to you most recently. We spoke to Lionel Frost, the sales manager at the National Energy Solutions. South Africa now back to load shedding. It is stage 2 load shedding that will be implemented from this evening all the way through Thursday, just when the country, its citizens and its businesses thought that they were now in free reign, that power was there available for them as and when they wanted. Not so. And so what are the other alternatives that businesses have in order to remain sustainable, in order to keep their doors open? Solar power as well as other alternative energy sources discussed this afternoon on Africa in Business. And also currently underway in the beautiful city of Durban in South Africa is the Africa Travel Indaba. We had a conversation this afternoon with Jonathan Erau, who is from the Association of Uganda Tour Operators. He was taking us through what they, as Uganda, have to offer at this year's Travel Indaba. One of the key offerings and one of the key packages and experiences that one can experience when visiting Uganda are the mountain gorillas. You can track those, and he made a point of highlighting the fact that Rwanda, Uganda and Congo are basically three of the countries where you can get to do this on the African continent. Well, that's how we come to the end of it for today on Africa in Business. From myself, Thami Ngubeni, and our team, producer Mabubu Loka, technical producer Katu Madava, and social media, and Zako Mashaba, you have yourself a great one. God bless.